Good morning to those, or not good morning, but good evening to those out there who are listening. Wait a few moments as I normally do before I get started. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? All right. Set my timer. Smart clock. There we go. Do that. Let's see that. And how are you this evening? Let me make sure there's no delay. All right. I'm going to wait a few more moments as I usually do, before we get started. Let's check this clock. Okay. So we record. And how are you doing this evening? Besides that, trying to stay and hope that there's no earthquake aftershock. It's a lot of just reading different news articles. I don't watch a lot of news, especially U.S. news, because there's a lot of crazy things happening. But it's it's a lot of crazy things going on right now. Okay, so I wanna wait 2 more minutes. 2 more. I just had a storm where I'm at. It's been raining for probably 9, 10 days straight so far. With it looks like it's going to be raining for another call for rain every day for the next at least 5 out of the next 6 days. But no hail. Thank goodness, no hail. But a lot of wind and rain, but no hail. Be careful. Don't go out there. Be careful. Be careful out there. All right. Normally I wait 5 to 10 minutes, and it's been 9. So I'm gonna wait one more. Well, good evening, Miss Weaver. All right, so my timer is about up, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop this. Stop this. And, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. A good day, good evening, everyone out there watching and listening to this latest episode on In the Know with Dr. O. I'm Dr. O, and I do thank you for participating and spending some time with me this evening. A special thanks to those who consistently participate, and thank you to all who watch during this live session. Make sure you hit that subscription button and notification bell if you haven't already, and hit that like button if you enjoy this segment. I'm going to do like a round table type of discussion. Today I'll introduce some topics, and we'll discuss and debate those topics, and then I'll open it up to you all, and we can talk about a particular topic that you'd like to discuss. Unlike my videos in the past, I now have the capability to allow people to call in. So I'm gonna open that up from time to time to hear your thoughts. And of course, common or two roundtables are we have to be respectful to differences of opinion. You know, we all kind of think we're right at times. You can accept or deny, you can agree or disagree, you can concur or reject the thoughts of another, but make sure you do so in a respectful manner. So the first topic that I'd like to discuss is, have y'all heard of that, and I only recently heard it, but that Olympian, I think her name is Shaw Carey Richardson, or I don't know if I butchered her first name, but Richardson. A little bit of the backstory. She, I think, won the 100-meter trial in, I believe it was Oregon, but the anti-doping agency, they found that she did cannabis, and she was later disqualified. So she was stripped of that win, and then they nullified that win, and then they banned her from competing, I think, in that event in the Olympics. And I think she's actually been banned from all of it. And initially it was supposed to be for 30 days. But nonetheless, she said she used cannabis because of the death of her mother. She stated that she found out from a reporter a few days before the Olympic trials that her mother had died. And so she turned to cannabis to help her cope. So the question is, do you agree or disagree that she should have been disqualified and suspended? And why? Why do you feel that way? Do you agree or disagree that Olympian Richardson should have been suspended because of the use of cannabis from the Olympics? Why or why not? So that's what I want to hear first. Do you agree or disagree? And then I'll save my response to a little later. So let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree that she should have been banned and suspended? And I just heard about that, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days ago. So thought it was a pretty interesting situation. But do you agree or disagree she should have been disqualified and suspended? I'm going to put the question here. I'm going to type the question in for those of you who join a little later. Again. The Olympics. All right, so this is the first question for those of you, and I'm going to type all the questions in as we go along for those of you who join later. So this is the first question. Agree if the drug is illegal for the athletes, then it was wrong, unfortunately. What about, so even though she used it as a coping mechanism, her mother had just died, she learned. I think she found out through or from a reporter. So even though her mother died and she needed to cope, and this was her go-to to cope, you still believe that it was wrong. And is it as simple as because it was illegal? Is it just as simple? Is it a black and white thing? It was illegal. She did it. It's wrong. Well, if her go-to is crack, good question. Good question. And I'm not suggesting that. First, I want to get your opinion, your thoughts. If her go-to was crack, but crack hasn't been found as far as I know. No, I'm no expert, nor am I in the medical field. But as far as I know, crack is not prescribed to help people cope or deal with things. So, great question, bad analogy. If I go to was crack. What is that process? What is that process? What was that process? Enlighten us, or what happened with Mike Phelps? And say now you're introducing. I'm assuming you're introducing. You made that statement because of either one, he's a male and she's not, or two, race might have played a part in it. And for those of you who are just joining us, roundtable type of discussion, throwing out different topics, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. The first question is about that Olympian Richardson who was disqualified after it was found out that she did cannabis a few days before her trials. They found out afterwards, and she was subsequently stripped of that win and then disqualified or suspended, and I think later disqualified from participating in the Olympics. So the question is, do you agree or disagree? Disagree, she should have been disqualified and suspended from the Olympics for door cannabis. So that's the question. I believe he was suspended but allowed to compete after a certain time could be considered race and sex. So what's supposed to happen, as far as I know, that is a 3-month suspension. However, if you take some type of class or a group of classes, if you take the class or classes, then that can be reduced to 30 days. And she took the class, it should have been reduced to 30 days, which would have allowed her to compete in part. I don't know if it would allow her to compete for the singles race, but I think the relay race she would have been able to compete in. And I think that would have been after that 30 days would have been up. But I've since read or heard that I think she's disqualified from all of it. So I don't know the full story with that, and if that's true, what I read or heard, why it would be different for her. Good point, though. That's a good point. I would hope race or sex would not be influential in the decision for the agency to strip her of the win and then completely or partly disqualify her or suspend her and prevent her from competing, especially if it's the same agency who allow Phelps, as you said, to compete. Yeah, that would be a bad situation. That would be a bad situation. Anybody disagree with her? Who thinks it was wrong for Richardson to either be stripped of her win at the trials or be prevented from competing in the Olympics just because of she took cannabis, but she was completely stripped of the win and now being prevented from competing. We got at least one person saying that they think it was wrong, unfortunately, that they agree that she should be disqualified or suspended and disqualified. Anybody disagree? I hadn't heard of the Phelps situation, or maybe I have, and I don't really follow swimming, and I just forgot. And when was that? I assume that was the last Olympics or whatever, last time he was relevant. Could be considered race and sex. Which one do you think would be? Which one do you think is likely to be more of? Her sex or his race, or race or sex? Yeah, it's like I said. I don't know. I'm leaning more toward race. If there is a double standard, I think it would be race, right? Yeah, I think it would be a racial thing more than sex. But all right, so you do agree that the 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 agency, they were correct in what, just stripping her of the win and suspending her, or do you think she should have been stripped but allowed to play or allowed to race? And then the other question is, what about and this is the part I just don't know enough about, if she's completely banned from competing or it's just that 30-day window. Because I thought I read that they stopped her. She's completely banned. And for those of you just joining us again, the question is I posted the question to the chat, and we're talking about the Olympian Richardson. She was disqualified. She was disqualified, and she disqualified from racing in the Olympics. She was stripped of her win in the trials, and then later she was banned, as far as I know, from competing. That's the current question. So I want to know: do you agree or disagree with the agencies banning her and stripping her of her win? Did they do the right thing, the agency? Do you agree or disagree? She should have been disqualified. Do you agree or disagree? And we got somebody said race and sex may have played a part in that, and comparing it to the Michael Phelps situation where he smoked weed, I believe, and he was suspended, I think, for a month, but he was allowed to compete. But I think things seem to be different for Richardson, so that's what we are discussing. So I want to hear your thoughts. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? First question again is posted in there. Do you agree or disagree? Richardson, sprinter, she should have been disqualified or suspended from the Olympics for doing cannabis as a coping mechanism as a response to the learning of the death of her mother. So let me know your thoughts. Do you agree or disagree, and why? And then, so if it is about race, let's say it was a racial thing, how is that something that can be proven? Is that something that can be proven? I'm gonna have to check on that Phelps situation. Let's take a look. I do see when I looking up Phelps, I do see that it's a lot of comparisons being made. This story said it was in 2008. Was it that long ago? Hmm. Okay, I see. Okay. I do see some comparisons when I viewed it online, and mainly it just looks like people are when I compare it, they're angry and looking at Phelps and saying, well, why wasn't he suspended, or why was he still allowed to compete if she and she can't? But I think one of the things that we must consider is, what were the rules like then? Are we under the same set of guidelines and same set of rules of where we were then? If that's what that happened in 2008, so 12, 13 years ago, what I know it was still illegal back then, but what was the time frame? Because I think for Richardson, it's within a certain amount of days, maybe 1, 2, 3 days before the event that she's partaken in. It's supposed to start through the competition or the end of the competition. So there's like a competition period. I don't know if that's what that competition period was for Phelps. And then also with Phelps, if I'm not mistaken, his wasn't right before. I don't know if it was right before. I think his may have been right before, although I think a picture came out. The picture coming out may have been closer to the competition time, but when he actually did it, I believe it was prior. So I'm not sure if that's like a fair comparison. What are your thoughts on that? If what I'm saying is true, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that? And that's impacted just different, and I think about it, different social situations that I've seen recently where the today's standard is different than yesterday's standard. However, we're so is it fair? Do you agree that Olympian Richardson, she should have been disqualified or stripped, disqualified from her win in the Olympic trials, and then suspended for from competing in the Olympics? Here we got someone mentioned race could play a part or could be a part as to why it's different, or it seems at least appears different from the Michael Phelps situation of 12, 13 years ago. So, Miss Weaver, under what circumstances do you think it should have been okay? Okay, that's what the state. So you're all about rules. What does the book say, right? I think that may be an auditor in you or an inspector. I think she used THC, if I'm not mistaken. And what if she had a prescription for it? Does a prescription, let's say she had a prescription for it, does that change anything in your mind? So she has a piece of paper saying, I can take this, I can smoke this, whatever it is. Does that change your thought, your view? Does that change your view? And if so, why does it? And I think I see where you're going uh, with all of this. But I do want to hear, why does that change your view? It changes your view. Okay. Bye bye. I don't know if it should change your view. Medicinal excuse, okay, but so on one hand, you're saying there's a rule, and if you do this, it's illegal. But then on the other, and so if you do this, it's illegal. If this is the rule, did you comply? It's a yes no thing. If the answer is no, you're saying, well, it's wrong. It's unfortunate, but it's wrong. But now you're saying that same thought, that same yes no question, it's wrong. But now I have a piece of paper that says it allows me to be wrong. That I'm understanding you correctly. And I don't know if I don't know if I agree with that. I don't agree. I don't agree with that. That if she broke the rule, like you said, Richardson, did THC, I think it was, and if that's an illegal substance, and she broke that rule, why should medicinal purposes or not, if she has some documents saying that I can do this, why should that change the the agency, the anti-doping agency? Because the medicinal purposes allows her to, if she had one, isn't that against the state, right? That like, hey, you're allowed to, so you can't be get in trouble by the law or the courts because you have this. So if you're smoking and you're seen and your state says it's illegal, well, now it's legal for you because this is a state approved for the state. This is a state approved document, but that has nothing to do with the agency, especially, and I get that from the anti-doping, the U.S., but we're talking about WADA here, right? The World Anti-Doping Agency. So how would that paper come in hand? Crime, it's not wrong. It's legal in the state. Okay, so I think you may have to call in. For those of you listening, and you want to call in on this topic we are discussing. Olympian Richardson, she was disqualified her win in the Olympic trials. I think it was in Oregon. She was stripped of that win, and then she was also suspended for I believe 30 days. And I can't recall if I read or not if she was just completely banned. But in any case, she was stripped and suspended, and for taking THC, a banned substance. And she said she did so as a way to cope with the death of her mother. So the question is, do you agree or disagree with that disqualification and subsequent suspension for Richardson? Do you agree or disagree, and why? But Miss Weaver, give me a call at I'm gonna place in here. So I want to discuss this a little more. I think it'd be better over the phone. Put the number in there. But it's 301-531-4439, 301-531-4439. So give me a call if you would like to discuss that further. So if it's prescribed, it's not wrong. But according to what is the prescribe or this prescription, this document, what does the document allow her to do? Right? And what are you comparing that against? It's wrong where? Like in her state and in the eyes of what? The let's say her local police or state police. So it's wrong in that, but this piece of paper says, okay, local police, state police, it's right. So that's my question to you. So that's what I want to know. Because I have to push back on that. I don't agree that if she would have had some type of prescription or medicinal excuse, that should eradicate uh, or allow her to bypass what the agency said. Right. So yeah. So you're prescribed by the state, right? By the state, for the state. By the state, for the state. And then it opens up a so many other variables, so many other factors. Okay, so let's say she does have one, and I'm still waiting on Weaver for you to call me. So let's say she does have one. We don't know what state it's for, but let's say it is for the state of Oregon.
Call from.
Let's say it is from
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
It's Miss Weaver.
Yes, Dr. O.
Let me turn you up some. All right. So you're saying for medicinal purposes, right? So far, I'm correct. But
Right.
so what?
If she has a prescription, and it could be for depression or whatever, just like other people have prescriptions for Zoloft or, medicinal, whatever ailments they have, if they have a prescription, I mean, they have to be able to compete as long as if they legally have a prescription. If that drug is in their system. So, yeah, if it is legally prescribed, it should be okay. If she does not have a prescription and she's using it as something on her own, then it's illegal. She doesn't have a prescription, it's illegal. Even though it is legal in that state. No.
It's legal in what state?
Where they were competing.
In Oregon.
The state, yeah.
Okay. Valid point, great point, and I hear you. This is why I disagree. It's for me, it's almost like church and state, where the church is free to operate and you're free to practice and your religion and free to pray, et cetera, wherever you want. And you have religion, let's say Christian doctrine. That has nothing to do with the state and what the state believes in the state doctrine. So as long as I'm operating within boundaries or within, and I'm not breaking any law, then we can have two different ideologies. We can have two different things functioning in parallel. So while that prescribed document may allow her to utilize cannabis, THC, that doesn't mean that's a free for all, get out of jail free card, and that any agency that says you can't do this, she will be allowed to use that document that says this document supersedes anything that you have going on that conflicts with what this document says. Because, for instance, as a concealed permit holder, I can be holding wherever I want to go, right? Because I have this concealed permit anywhere I want to go at all times. At any given time, I will have one on me. However, if I go into a store or a federal building or something like that, and it says you can't take that in there, now what? So you see I think that logic is the same. As a permit holder, can I take my weapon in a place that says you cannot bring it in?
I mean,
It was yes,
That-
no. You could say yes or no and then say that. So it was yes or no.
repeat the question.
Sure. Okay. Okay. As a permit holder, I can carry a gun wherever I want to take it. However, if I come upon a building, a location that says you cannot bring this gun here. You can't bring it in the store. You can't bring it on this military installation in this building. I have this card that says, hey, I can take my gun with me. Why can't I take my weapon in here even though I have this card? So you can take a gun and not be a permit holder. You can carry that on you, right? That may not be the right thing to do. But if I have this permit that says I can legally leave my house with it, why can't I go into the store in this building in this military installation? I have a permit, right?
That is correct. And
Okay, so
probably should not be able to carry that weapon in there. But then that's a different analogy, because that's like if, like, say a person needs inhaler that has a steroid in it. So if there's a competition that says, you can't use steroids, are they going to not allow that person that needs that steroid in order to breathe to be able to perform in that competition? They're going to allow that person that prescription, that drug, that steroid that's not legal. I mean, are you going to stop people from being able to go?
Based on your initial logic, no, it can't, because it's illegal. And that's what you just said. If it's not legal, so not legal and illegal, it's illegal. Here's why I push back. Let me give you my thought. So we know weed, cannabis, THC, it can do a lot. It can calm you, it can bring you down if you're hot, agitated, mellow you out, etc. And it may not give you, let's say, extra strength or speed in this case for her. So in that sense, it's not an advantage, right? If it doesn't give you extra speed, strength, agility. Correct? We agree? We're on the same page with that? Yes, no? Did you drop off? I think you may.
No, I'm here. I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, so you agree. But say for me, like, what about the inverse? I would argue it is an advantage that any substance that alters you, that alters your mental state, your physical state, your abilities, I think should be banned. In this case, she's stressed or anxiety or depressed, whatever she was going through. This substance allowed her to overcome those things. So while it didn't give her an advantage of speed, strength, agility, it did give her an advantage of, it allowed her, she was at one state that was, let's say, disarray, but then it allowed her to focus, to calm her. If she didn't have that, she wouldn't have been able to, I assume, she wouldn't have been able to have that calmness or that focus. If she wouldn't have been able to, without taking the cannabis. So in my opinion, it's an advantage. So it's what it can do to you, but then also what it takes away.
But I thought she wanted to wait and find out.
Say that again.
I thought she basically didn't find out that her mother had passed until after the race.
No, see, I read that it was before, because I think it was retroactive back. It happened, and then they did it. They found out afterwards, but it was a retroactive back to prior. But let's even on that point. So if that's the case, then let's disregard my statement of it made her focus and all of that. But I'm just not so sure. However, even still,
we don't know.
using your logic that, hey, I have this piece of paper and this permit, it allows me to supersede your authority. That piece of paper really only applies to that state. But if she's in a state that was legal and she doesn't need a piece of paper, that's fine. But now we're talking about the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, I think it's called. That governs all athletes and prohibits cannabinoids of any kind, right? So this agency bans substances and it applies to worldwide. So in this case, how can my piece of paper, or what type of impact does this state or even national piece of paper have to do with a global thing?
It's a medicinal prescription.
I get it, but
it's a legal prescription.
But for who?
I
mean, I'm sorry, for what country?
Scenario.
What country though?
I mean, whatever country. I mean, okay.
Nope.
I hear what you're saying.
I have a U.S. passport. I cannot take this passport, or I can't take my Japanese passport and act like that has the same ability or power as this U.S. passport. Or I may have a lease to a house, but I can't take this lease and say, well, I can use this lease and say I'm the owner of a different house, because it has no relevance. But go ahead with your statement. She has a legal document created in the U.S. by the U.S.
Yeah, and that is her person. So
right.
If that is her person and that is something that is legally prescribed to her for her health and mental capacity, then why would you withhold that whatever country you're in? I mean, it's like a diabetic. If you're a diabetic and you can't travel or carry liquids or that kind of drug on the plane, are they going to not let you fly with it? Or because you're needed for medicinal purposes, they're going to find a way for you to fly with it, right?
Well, I would go back to your original thought. And I see you, Dizzy Girl, you get it for depression and other ailments. So if you go to the doctor and they find weed in your system, you wouldn't get in trouble, right? So what you got, that's a national thing, or at least a state thing. And that's the point here that she's making as far as the plane. But I go back to your initial statement, Ms. Weaver, in that if it's illegal, it's illegal. So if it's illegal, then it's illegal. So if then it goes down to sympathy or empathy of the plane in that industry. Do you know why? I don't know if you've been out of the country or not, but I have, and I've lived other places. And for instance, if I were to go to Japan, I can't use my American issued driver's license to drive there. They make me get and follow the rules that country issued. If I want to live there, if I want to participate in their culture, or in their country, or in their drive on their streets, if I want to participate in their country or culture, then I have to do what's right or what they say to do. There is no other way around it. I can't take my little driver's license and say, but the United States, the best country in the world, blah, 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 issued this. See, and I can drive anywhere with this. They're going to look at me and curse me out in Japanese or whatever, and then say, if you want to drive here, this is what you need to do.
And for me, I was in the military for 20 years, and you could not take certain drugs. I had top secret clearance. You couldn't do a lot of things
you couldn't do a certain thing. So I knew that, and I didn't do those things. So if you know that I didn't want to jeopardize my top secret clearance, so there were certain things that I didn't do. You know, when you're in the military, you have to, sort out. Yeah, you have to act accordingly at all times. So I wanted to keep the job that I was in, so I followed the rules.
But why?
And Dr. O, that's Donna. This is Donna talking. She's walking with me. So
Okay,
she's
because
chiming
for a
in.
second there, I was thinking,
Yeah.
I did not know you did 20 years in the military, and I didn't know that you can change your voice on a fly like that.
I
So
know.
that
So if you know that you're an Olympian, yeah, you got to. I don't know. You just have to. You're better than the best. You're one of the best. So you have to certain things that you have to follow the rules. You train hard. You do everything hard. And so I don't know. You have to make that sacrifice. You have to think. You have to be thinking outside of the box. I can remember I worked at a special place, and some of us had second jobs. Okay, well, some of us had to have. Some of them wanted to work an extra job outside of the military, and they had to take a lifestyle poly. Well, we had a regular polygraph for the job that we did, a CI poly. But if you wanted to work at this other, making more money on the side, you had to take a lifestyle poly. Well, guess what? Some of them took the lifestyle poly, which is a little bit more expensive than the CI poly, and they lost their job.
Yep, that's why I
So
would not take that.
yeah, exactly.
I've turned down jobs because they wanted a higher clearance and all that. No, you're not going to do it. Okay, so, but her point though is I use this to cope. So now we're talking about mental health and addressing stressful situations that we have. So I hear everything you're saying. She's the best of the best, or one of the best, and kind of held to a higher standard. And you have to follow the rules. And it's not just the herd following rules. Rules are in place for a reason.
For everyone.
But she has to follow the rules. The exception, do you think there should be an exception to, like, hey, my mother just...
Well, nothing is written in stone.
Those rules work.
The rules is no good.
Okay. So, do you think...
I mean, I get it that they're written,
right?
But they're not in stone. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they have to be enforced.
But it's an exception to every rule, I believe.
To promote something illegal to cope for the passing of a...
All right. So, but even with that, I think we would have to look at the reason why the rules were created, right? So the water, they created it they banned substances, as we know, for multiple reasons, such as one that I said before, where it can enhance or could enhance performance. I believe it's not just what it can give you, it's what it takes away. But it can be used as a health risk. Substances could pose a health risk to you. And then it violates the spirit of the sport. I would take it a step further and say, all right, so we have someone, THC, cannabis, weed, whatever, and while it may not give her, let's say, speed, she's running a sprint, the 100, or a
look at the amount.
What if
that was
it's also there to protect fans, because if I'm in the stands and someone did weed, let's say the day before, 2 days before, whatever, I don't know if I'm going to go watch the javelin throw, which is just like a spear. I don't know if I'm going to go, or the shot put. I don't know if I'm going to go watch that, right? Because they have stuff in their system. That's just me.
That's a good point.
So it's tough.
the big that is
Yes, Ms. Daniels, I agree. She needs to find better coping mechanisms, because what if, let's say I was an Olympian and something happened, but I decided not to. So I dealt with the stress and anxiety and all of that, and I didn't do as well. In this case, she was able to still do well because she had that focus. She was able to calm down. That's what I meant by earlier when I said what it takes away. It took away her anxiety, depression, and whatever it is. So I do agree that better coping mechanisms are what she needed to do. Someone brought up race and sex earlier. Do you think it's unfair scrutiny of a black female athlete? Do you think this is an unfair scrutiny because she's a black female athlete? Do y'all think that played a part in anything?
I don't think so.
That's Donna's take. She don't think so. Letitia's take is she thinks so.
Why? Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, like I said in the comment earlier, I think I don't know the specifics right off in front of me right now, but with the swimmer, it was like there was some article that did a comparison, apples to oranges, and it was, I mean, completely different. It was some things that they allowed for him, but some things they didn't allow for her. They were like, what? Yeah.
What I know about that situation is a picture came out later. Well, when he did it, it was outside of what they call the competition period.
Mm-hmm.
Where she did it, it was within the competition period.
At the beginning.
So that would have been a major thought. I mean, a major difference. I don't know. But thanks for the call, ladies. I'm gonna switch to the second topic. Feel free to call back in if you choose, but I'm gonna disconnect now, and you all keep listening.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Miss Weaver. Second question, second topic. This has been a highly debatable topic, at least especially in the psychological realm. I remember having some great conversations about it in some of my classes. And I've heard arguments on each side, in each side. The question is, alcoholism, is that a choice or a disease? Now, I've heard different sides. Some say choice, some say disease, and I've heard some people are passionate about their belief on this topic. So the second one, I want to hear y'all thoughts. Alcoholism, is it a choice or is it a disease? Alcoholism, is it a choice or is it a disease? And make sure you hit that subscription button and notification bell if you haven't already. Alcoholism, is it a choice or a disease? And then why you feel that way. And I will reserve my statement until the end. Is it a choice or is it a disease? What do you all think? A choice or disease? I've heard some pretty passionate, I almost see people getting in, yelling matches and all of that. They were pretty heated on this topic. Alcoholism, is it a choice or is it a disease? Okay, well, thanks for telling me what you don't think it start as. And that's great, right? Everything has a start. But what do you think it is? A choice or a disease? A choice or a disease? Is it a choice or a disease? And why? And why do you feel that way? Choice first turning what? Choice first. Oh, so you're saying it's a choice and then it turns into a disease. So I don't know what. Are you saying then it's a disease? Or are you saying it's a choice? Yes. So you're saying it's a disease. And alcoholism is it a choice or disease? You're saying it's a disease, and if so, why? I think it can be a disease. You can try it once and be addicted. What type of alcohol is that? Okay. All right. All right, Weaver. So let's start over. Alcoholism, is it a choice or a disease? You just come back with the one word and then we can go from there. And Daniels, I think it can be a disease. Okay, then if you think it can be a disease, then you think it can also be a choice. So which one do you think it is? The one word answer, right? A choice or disease. First time I drink, I knew I would continue. Sound like an addict. I think I was 25 when I took my first drink. Yeah, I was 25. And I've never drank any of the hard stuff, I don't think. I had an apple martini once, no, twice. And a Bellini twice. Over the past, 3 times, Bellini 3 times. Over the past, probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years, something like that. But outside of that, now I just drink wine every once in a while. All right, Weaver, you said you think it's choice. Tell me why. Why do you think it's choice? And Daniels, what do you think it is? A choice or a disease? And then tell me why. Choice or disease? Tell me why. And Daniels, are you ever going to stop? First time I drank, I knew I would continue. And what type of drinking do you do? Or you drink because you have a desire, right? Not an addict. I have self-control. Okay, all right. So addict-like tendencies, maybe. All right, so you see yourself ever stopping. And then you drink the same as you once did. And that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just different. Like if you were just light drinking then, but you're heavier drinks now, or vice versa. I'm lighter if there was such a thing, since I was always been a lightweight. when it comes to that. But if it's not wine, for the most part, I won't even touch it. But second question we pose: alcoholism, is it a choice? Do you think it's a choice or a disease? And why? Why do you think it's a choice, or why do you think it's a disease? I get that it usually starts as a choice, and keyword is usually start. So I haven't had anyone say disease. I heard or I read it could be, or it starts out and then it ends up as this. But I hadn't read anyone say it was a disease. Alcoholism, is it a choice or a disease? Choice or disease? I'll wait another few moments and then I'll give you my thoughts and why I feel what I feel. I'm not stopping. I drink more in my youth. I drink a glass of wine a few days a week, more socially than anything. Good for you. Sticking to your standards. You know what you want and you're not going to stop. So you think you brought up self-control. Do you think then that a person, they control if it gets to, you said it can lead to a choice. Do they control if it leads to it becomes not just a choice, but now becomes a disease? What are your thoughts? Okay, it can turn to a disease if a person doesn't have self-control. Okay, so I'm just hearing choice. I'm just hearing choice. Does anyone think it's alcoholism is if it's a disease? That seems to be when I've had these types of discussions with people in the past. Those on the choice side, those of us on the choice side kind of said the same type of things where, hey, it starts out, they make the decision. They're the ones who decides to take that first drink, a second drink, etc. So it's a choice that they make, and it turns into a disease based on a myriad of reasons, but primarily based on their decision to keep drinking. So this is in line with what others are saying. For those of you just joining us, we're talking. The second question in this roundtable discussion is alcoholism. Is it a choice or is it a disease? Is it a choice or is it a disease? We've got a few people who have just said choice and they gave me their reason. No one said disease yet. And if you want to call and give me your thoughts, give me a call at 301-531-4439, 301-531-4439. I think it's a disease. I think it's a disease, alcoholism or alcohol addiction. I think it is a disease. And I'm big on a APA, American Psychological Association, and their definitions. And and how that organization operates, but the APA is defined as APA defines alcoholism as a syndrome. It's a syndrome of compulsive or a dependent alcohol use. So it's a syndrome of compulsive or dependent alcohol use. And if we define syndrome, we get a set of symptoms. It's a set of symptoms and signs that indicate a particular physical or mental disease or disorder. So the APA defines alcoholism as a syndrome, dependent or a syndrome of compulsive or dependent alcohol use. Take syndrome, and that APA defines that as a set of symptoms and signs that indicate a particular physical or mental disease or disorder. And that's part of the reason why I think it's a disease. But I do think it's a disease. I think it's, someone mentioned earlier that they drink more in their youth. I think alcoholism is, or I think just heavy drinking, I think it's something that's defined in a person's life. And it's not necessarily over their entire life. It could be they suffer from the disease of alcoholism earlier in life and then kind of transition out of it and they don't drink as much. But I do think it is a disease, and it is based on where a person is in their life. I agree with some seminal work. I don't know if you all you're probably unlikely to know who Stanton Peele is, but in the 1970s, he stated that most people overcome alcoholism without treatment, even if they don't completely stop. So they suffer from the disease, and then through self-control or a number of other things, they were able to kind of get that under control. And then later, I think it might have been 10, 12 years ago, the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism supported Stanton Peele's, his thoughts on alcoholism and how it doesn't have to stay with a person. And then for y'all history buffs, I don't know if you recall I think it was Powell, P-O-W, I think Leroy Powell, P-O-W-E-L-L versus Texas. And I think it may have been maybe late 60s, early 70s, where he was arrested for public intoxication. And went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and his lawyer, his team of lawyers were arguing that he was suffering from a disease. And they end up losing. I think it was 5-4 or something like that. But I think if I was one of the justices back then, I would have likely voted in the favor of the lawyers' argument that alcoholism is a disease. So I'm stuck, or I'm sold on it's a disease. Alcoholism is a disease more so than a choice. And then you add in, what does alcohol do? Right? We know the impacts on the nervous system, such as the brain and the spinal cord, and then other neurological processes such as your body temperature. A lot of people think that it raises your body temperature, but it can lower your body temperature if you drink a lot of alcohol. You may not make it to REM sleep, and we know that's important for stimulating the brain when it comes to learning and recollection, recalling memories. And we know the impact on the brain, right? The area that's responsible for your muscular coordination, that part is impacted a great deal. So that's why you may see people like stumbling, people who drink a lot. And then we take it a step further. You got even more serious issues. I think it's something called KS. Yeah, KS. It's Korsakoff's syndrome, and that's it affects your short-term memory more so than your long term. So in a sense, a person is just kind of living in the present. That's all. They just remain in the past. And so let's say they developed this KS in the early 90s. They may be more likely to believe that Bill Clinton is still president. But back to my point. While a person may choose to start drinking and it can lead to alcoholism, and I don't know if that's as important as to the how they got there. I don't think how they got there is as important as where they are. And from this logic, I think one person could argue that other issues are a choice. Other diseases are a choice, right? Such as diabetes. They can, especially type 2. Diabetes is controlled more so, type 2 is controlled more so by your diet. And you can even through your diet push it into remission. But that is a disease. But if it's based on their desire or their choice, then we couldn't say diabetes is a disease. Same thing for, let's say, lung or throat cancer. A person that decided to smoke or dip. The choice was theirs to start, right? But isn't that still a disease? Isn't that still a disease? So that's why I think alcoholism is a disease as opposed to a choice. Anyone agree with me? Anyone agree with me? Anyone agree with me? Am I the only one that think it's a disease? It looks like I am. Looks like I am. So we have a few people for choice, but nobody for disease. And that's a tough. It's a lot of empirical evidence out there. I think it's more empirical evidence out there that supports it's a disease more so than a choice. Or and in my experience, the empirical evidence for disease has greatly overpowered and overshadowed really the idea that alcoholism is a choice. Because this can be impacted by genetics. You may be prone to do these things, while a person can always argue that you decide to take that first drink. Why did they decide that? Right? So yes, they may have decided it, but why? Were they inclined to? I mean, the disease was even before they made that decision. So no matter what, they were going to be fighting this difficult battle. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Alcoholism, a choice or a disease. And for those of you who are just joining us, we've had two topics, and I think I'm going to stop there and open it up. I have another topic, but I may save that for another day. First one was we were talking about the Olympian Richardson and how she was suspended from competing in the Olympics, and how she was stripped of her win in the Olympic trials. I wanted to know if you agree or disagree with the anti-doping agency and their decision to strip her of her win and suspend her. If you agree and disagree that was the right thing to do, even though she took, I think it was THC as a coping mechanism. I wanted to know that. Then the second topic was talking about alcoholism. And the question was, alcoholism, is it a choice or a disease? And the third one, I think I'm gonna wait because it's extremely controversial. So I think I'm gonna wait on that. But I want to know what you all want to talk about. Was there a particular hot topic or two that you all wanted to discuss? Was there a topic that you all wanted to discuss? Doesn't matter what it is. Does not matter what the topic is. Doesn't matter what the topic is. So what's on your mind? What are some topics you want to discuss? What are some topics you want to discuss? Brought up the Olympian, and then we also brought up alcoholism. Is it a choice or is it a disease? Any topics y'all want to discuss before I conclude? A few moments to see if anyone has anything they want to, any topics they want to discuss. Oh, did y'all hear about that? I'm sure you did. Bill Cosby being released from prison. Kind of wild. Some people I've seen are livid. Okay, I don't see any messages coming in, so I don't think there's any topics, but I'll wait a few more moments. Sometimes YouTube can be a little slow in the chat function coming in. Bill Cosby thing threw me for a loop, but I get it. Oh, you're talking about Bill Cosby on the technicality. He's still guilty though, but is he? Right? Because isn't this country built on absolute innocent until proven guilty? So if he got off, I mean, he wasn't found guilty. How can one say that he's guilty? And then with the whole Bill Cosby thing, man, it's tough. Earlier, I was talking about briefly, and I think it was when we were talking about Richardson, the Olympian, how he, or how compared to Phelps, we're looking at today's social situations or incidents. We're looking at yesterday's incidents, social situations based on today's criteria. And I think this was just, he fell into that during that time. Wasn't it sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or whatever how the saying goes, or everybody doing it. So then, I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but it was definitely the norm, where it was more accepted. This is just what people did, Woodstock and et cetera, et cetera. This is just what people were doing. And he was no different. If these women are, hey, you're going to parties, you are, and I'm not saying just going to a party means you're asking for this or you should know that. What I'm saying is some of them, at least in some of the situations, were, I think, a product of the environment. So I think that's part of it. And then because more, and I said earlier, I said everybody's doing it. That's more of just a statement for emphasis, but people were doing that in general then. And today, of course, it would not be put up with. Today, no questions. But then, that standard then, we're judging them today or judging them a few years ago like he did it today. So I'll never agree. I'll never see something. I'll never see this differently. That I think we were judging him today or yesterday based on how the norm was a few decades ago. So we can say he drugged them without them knowing, but you knowing that is based on testimony that he gave that should have never been given out, and that's what got him all. That's the technicality. So him giving that testimony wasn't supposed to be known. We can't. Yes, in retrospect, or you can say, hey, we know he said he did it, but you weren't supposed to know that he said that. And I get that you knowing that says, hey, he said he did these things, but where did the woman think they were going? Did he ask them, hey, I'm gonna take you to McDonald's or something like that? And I'm not saying that it makes it right, but where did you think you were going? Where do you think he was going? So for me, it's a tough debate and everything. So him getting out, yes, he got on a technicality, and he should have never been in to begin with. Based on that, saying he's guilty, that's where I disagree. That's why I disagree. But right, no, yeah, I agree. It is out. It's out. But how it got out and why it got out matters to me. And I agree. So I agree. So just because you go to a man's house, don't mean that you want to have sex with them, but you're going to Bill Cosby's house. And I'm not even saying that other women or women back then were aware that he was sleeping with all these other women. But you're going to a man's house. What do you think what was out there? Y'all gonna read a book together? I mean, what did you think? He was trying to get you to be in one of his television shows. What did you think was going to happen? And not saying they thought they were going to be taking it. Does it make it different? No, it doesn't. Conversation might have been good. I think they had phones over there. Phones at that point. Where is that a fly? I think they had phones then. Get away, fly. They had phones, so the conversation could have been great. Or you could have met in a public place. Could have met in a public place. So, and this wasn't even my third topic, but it's a good one. This is really a controversial one because I think you have two points. You got the technicality piece that you spoke to earlier, and then you have or so that's law, right or wrong according to the law. Did they do something that they should not have from a lawful standpoint? Yeah, that piece, and then you still have the guilt piece that you're saying that he admitted to and everything. So I did hear about how they asked him, did he know, or they asked him about consent. Did he know if they were able to give consent? Were they in a state of mind where they can give consent? And he said he didn't know if they were. So that part I heard. But we can go all day with Bill Cosby and this whole situation, but I think I'm going to end it there. I think I'm gonna end it there, and I'll come back and I'll pay attention to see if I see any other comments come in. But just in conclusion, I think we've heard different opinions and thoughts today. And while you don't have to agree with others, we do owe people, I think, and owe people in general to listen, at least listen to them and accept their answers, and accept that their answers could be different than yours, especially if we want them to listen to us, or if you want them to listen to yours and accept what you said. While you may feel strongly about your opinion, and you may believe deep down inside that yours is the right answer and your opinion is the right one. I think, and even if you have tons of support, proof, it's still your opinion and your belief, and it doesn't make things fact for other people. Not all things are fact just because you have a lot of support either. You don't have to agree with one another. You don't have to agree with a person to accept what they're saying. And I think that's where we kind of fall off some. We think we have to agree with what the person is saying to accept it, but you don't have to. What you do with that information is up to you. The information from another person is up to you, but you should at least be able to accept that their beliefs do not align with your beliefs. So I thank you all for participating. Make sure you hit that subscription button and notification bell, and check out some of my other videos. I have now incorporated a thought of the day, and I have like short lecture videos, and another live session is coming soon. So this is Dr. O signing off.